This is the actual antidote to depression that your therapist isn't telling you about. I have spent over 10 years in the psychology field helping people understand their mind and make sense of the emotional troubles that they're facing. And what's surprising to me is that not a lot of therapists really feel like they help people when it comes to depression. Now, listen, therapy is great and counselors are great, but I can't tell you the number of times that I get somebody who walks into my office and tells me that, yeah, I went to that counselor for depression and it really didn't help. And it's like, what? Isn't that what they're supposed to do? So listen, first thought of the day is if you got a therapist that's not working for you, find a new one, right? There are many therapists out there and some work in one way and others work in a different way. And you got to find the right fit for you. And not all therapists are created equal. And it's okay to say that. Find one that you trust, that you believe in, and that you feel like really is helping you and understands and empathizes with the situation you're going through. That being said, there are two key principles for depression that I have found to be extremely effective in helping people reorient their world, figure out what's going on, and then make some steps toward the right direction. So I want to share those with you today, these two things that I find to be the most helpful. Now, before we do that, though, we have to understand there's a huge difference, and I tell all of my clients this when they first come in, a huge difference between chemical and emotional depression. And what I mean by that is no amount of positive thinking, no amount of right thinking is going to change an imbalance of chemicals inside your brain. If you don't have the right level of serotonin inside your brain, you're going to feel sad. If you don't have the right drip of dopamine inside your mind, you are not going to feel happy. If your chemicals are fucked, you're not going to be okay, right? There's no amount of positive thinking that's going to fix that. You can change your diet, you can do stuff, but until you talk with a psychiatrist and get those feel-good chemicals flowing inside your brain, well, you're going to have a bad time, my friend. So let's just put that to rest right now. You know, there's a lot of stuff online about positive thinking and manifesting, but it's like, if shit's broken, shit's broken. Like no amount of good thinking is going to get you out of that. So talk with your psychiatrist, get evaluated, and seek local professional help. This is not a substitute for counseling. That being said, the antidote for depression, and let me unpack this, is curiosity and gratitude. And I'm kind of spoiling it here. I'm giving you it up front, but stay with me. I got to explain this. Curiosity and gratitude. Here's why. Most people don't realize that in order to be successful, they think that you need to be smart. And if you've ever met somebody who's successful, a lot of them are pretty stupid, okay? If IQ was the level of assessment for who's going to be successful and who's not, well, then we are sorely mistaken here. The better indicator of success is curiosity. The consistent value that those who are successful have is they like to be curious about many things. If you see CEOs and those who have come up with a great invention, they usually don't just stick with one thing. Like even Albert Einstein had very many wide and varied interests. And so a lot of people are like, oh man, if Einstein had just stuck to science and stuck to, his theories of physics, we would have had so much more. They don't understand. A mind that is so capable and successful has to have a lot of things and a lot of different input coming in. I mean, a lot of people even talk to me about this. They're like, Jesse, why do you have so many different irons in the fire? Why are you doing so many different things? And I'm like, because my mind is curious. I need to learn a lot about many things in order to really have that sense of awareness and that wisdom to make smart decisions about the things that I'm really, really good at. It's because I'm so curious about so many things that I'm really good at making the decisions that I want to make. And now I'm not saying that I'm the epitome and the pinnacle of success, but I'm just saying I have found my success comes when I become curious about many things. And so when we experience depression, you probably know this, depression is when you get stuck in a rut, right? You get stuck inside of this dark spiral inside your head. And so that dark spiral, if you're getting stuck in it and you're finding yourself unable to claw your way out of that hole that you find deep inside your chest, curiosity can be a great way to make that move. Because when you start to focus on, I need to get out of this depression hole, I need to get out of this depression hole, you're kind of reinforcing the depression, right? You're fighting against it and you're still stuck inside that trench. You're only moving forward or moving backwards. Instead, become curious. Look at the things over there. Look at the things over there. And finding that curiosity will re-spark your excitement and your joy for being alive. Now, that can be hard, especially if your chemicals are kind of messed up, especially if you're in a time of darkness. But don't forget that curiosity has to be the eventual goal, and it always helps. And so I tell people this all the time. I'm like, hey, I know you're depressed, but start coloring in a coloring book. Go learn a new hobby, go learn a new skill. I know you don't have anything to do with painting pottery, but go paint some pottery, right? Go throw some clay, go put a puzzle together, because the mind starts to atrophy and it starts to get sad and sick and, filled with cobwebs of emotions. And so just by re-adding some color and some variety into your life, it can really go a long way in helping the depression that you're feeling. Now, you may be saying, how can I be curious when everything around me sucks? Well, it's a mindset thing, right? And this is where success kind of comes from. And that's why those who are successful are curious, because even when met with trials and tribulations, I mean, the overused example of Thomas Edison and the light bulb, he made so many bad light bulbs, but for him, it was a mindset. He's like, I've learned another way not to make a light bulb. I mean, think about it. If you failed that many times in your life, you would probably become depressed. I mean, I know I would, but because Thomas Edison had this mindset of curiosity rather than, I've got to do it right, I've got to be successful, I've got to make $1 million, it didn't matter to him. He's like, I'm learning, I'm curious. It's like, wow, that filament didn't work. Let's try this one. Oh, well, that was interesting because it was bright, but it was short-lived. Let's try this one. And it's that curiosity that allowed him to get out of it. So if you're experiencing a lot of failure in your life or a lot of heartbreak, I'm not saying it's not difficult. But if you can use that as an opportunity, and even those symptoms of sadness as an opportunity to learn more about yourself, it's like, wow, this is hitting me a lot harder than I thought. What is this telling me? How can I become curious about my own experience and my own mind and learn from this? That is a powerful tool that nobody can take away from you, because then it doesn't matter whether you win or you lose. You get the opportunity to learn more. And that's something, again, that's so solid and safe, because nobody can take away your curiosity. People can take away your winning. People can sabotage you. People can take away your success. People can get in front of you and place obstacles between you and the thing that you'd like to achieve, but nobody can take away your curiosity. And I'm going to get to why that's so important here in a minute, and really why that's been foundational for human beings for so long. We got to get to the second point. I said curiosity and I said gratitude. And a lot of people roll their eyes when I tell them about gratitude. But here's what I mean. I'm not saying that you should be excited for the shitty things that are happening in your life. No, not at all. That would be lying. I'm not an advocate for you lying to yourself or making up, right? This is why I'm such a huge proponent. I really get aggressive about saying toxic positivity has to stop, right? That toxic positivity tries to put a silver lining around a shitty situation. Toxic positivity says, oh, this is fine. This is okay. This is great. What an opportunity. No, this is terrible. This is not what I wanted. And this is not how it should be going. Sometimes bad things happen to good people who do not deserve them. And I'm sure you've experienced this too. Many of us in our lives have had bad things happen to us that shouldn't have. That person did things to you that shouldn't have been happening. I'm not saying you should be grateful for that. Not at all. I'm certainly not saying, and even more, I'm going to double down, I'm not saying that you even needed those bad things to happen in your life for you to be the beautiful person you are today. Because I see that as well. I see people say, oh, well, this trial and tribulation made me a better person. Maybe you learned how to incorporate that into your story and learned how to use it, but you are an amazing person, whether you experienced trauma and are depressed or not. You didn't need someone to hurt you in order to be an amazing person. You already were. And in fact, you probably could have done some amazing things even without that trauma, just in the same way that you are learning how to do amazing things even with the trauma. I don't want to give trauma the credit for your success. That's the stupidest thing I ever heard, right? And so I'm not talking about that when I'm talking about gratitude. But what I am talking about is it's easy to focus on the negative stuff. And when we get stuck in that depression hole, when we get stuck in that rut, it seems like the only thing we can see are the things that are broken. Every day that you wake up with breath in your lungs, with a friend, even one that you can call and say, hey, I'm having a rough day. Anytime that you've got a roof over your head, anytime that you've got a meal you can put in your belly, man, that's pretty great. That's really great. And I'm not saying that the other stuff isn't fucked up, because it is. But if you've got a little something right now, man, that's really cool. And if you can be grateful for that, it will give you just a little spark of happiness in that moment of sadness that will fuel you enough to pull yourself out of that hole. And that's what I mean. Not saying it's not bad, but I am saying maybe if we can focus on one or two things that you're grateful for right now, it can cultivate a a feeling and a culture of happiness inside of you that you can then stoke those flames to grow. And that's something very beautiful and very powerful. Now, here's why this is so important, and here's why humanity has been saying this for so long. Life, overwhelmingly and without fail, is dangerous and chaotic. And a lot of times when we experience depression, it's because we want to control things that we have zero ability to control. There's a lot of things that I can't guarantee. And what's even worse is that culture will tell you that you can control things that you can't. They'll tell you success is in your hands. I mean, there's some things that you can do to help along the way, but man, there's also some things that will take success right out of your hands that you didn't ask for and that was 100% outside of your control. There's a lot of people who should have made $1,000,000 that didn't because life came along and sabotaged them. Chaos and danger. And so if you're feeling that depression, a lot of times I work with people who are feeling depression because they wish they had more control than is reasonable to expect in that situation. And then they feel bad about it. Our life as human beings is all about aligning perception with reality. Here is the data that I'm taking in from the world, and I'm going to try and make sense of it to align that sense as close as I can with what actually takes place in the world. But sometimes we come up with ideas that really don't align with reality. Hey, you're in charge of your own success. I mean, not totally, not really. And so if I go around thinking, wow, I'm to blame for my failure, I mean, maybe you are, but in other situations, maybe you really aren't. So you can see how you can become depressed because, well, what you're thinking isn't actually real. Now, a lot of this comes from, and the ancient starts of our history of humanity come from Eastern religion. And a lot of Eastern religions talk about these two things as well, curiosity and gratitude. I mean, you think about the monks, you think about Buddhist tradition, right? These Eastern religions and how they are very stoic, very meditative. They are curious about the introspections of the mind. They are curious about life and experiencing it, and they approach it with gratitude, and they let go of that control. Letting go of control, being inspired by curiosity, and being founded in gratitude are things that nobody can take away from you, and that absolutely will help your mental health and oftentimes can be the antidote to depression. If you like what I'm talking about and you want to hear more, hit subscribe down below, join the Discord server, and I'll see you in the next video. I hope that it helps, and you remember, your mind's not against you. It's just misunderstood. Bye.